D-O-N.
D-O-N.
R-E-A.
Don Ray. So, standing firm in being. This topic came up sort of in our practical mysticism class. We had a conversation about being, and it was so difficult. We found ourselves sliding into the doing. Inevitably, we'd have conversations about being, and then it would find its way into the doing. I think that most of you have heard the expression about keeping up with the Joneses, and that used to be about material items, but things have changed, and when we keep up with the Joneses now, it's about action. Maybe you've had conversations with people and you say, how have you been? Being. How have you been? And they'll say, oh, I've been so busy. I'm doing this and I'm doing that. I'm taking the kids to soccer. I'm on the board of blah, 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 blah. And the being slips into the doing, inevitably. And then you may reply, oh, I know what you mean. I've been doing this, and this, and this. And so there's a new status symbol I have discovered in our society, and it's the status of busyness. Like, we're not okay to just be. I read someplace, and this was in my computer, and so I don't have anybody to attribute it to, but it says, the civil religion of America worships the God of progress and inspires us to compete, achieve, and win for the sake of competing, achieving, and winning. Life for many people in the business world has been colorfully described as a matter of blowing and going, plotting and planning, ducking and diving, running and gunning, slamming and jamming, moving and shaking. And so that's what our culture has sort of slipped into, acknowledging the busyness. The longshoreman Eric Hoffer said that we're warned not to waste time, but we're brought up to waste our lives. That's powerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it seems to be true. We have a Judeo-Christian belief system that idle hands is the devil's workshop. And I have a friend that I met when I was in Albuquerque, and she's a soft, gentle spirit. I've known her since I was 3 years old. And in her family, she would be castigated for reading. Her mother was like, what are you doing? Get going and be busy and do this and do that. And that's soul killing. That kind of action. When I was a drug and alcohol counselor, there was a study, and once more, I don't have any way to attribute it, but the study was that the commonality between mass killers, people who sat on towers and strafed, people who went into schools and killed, the commonality was an overstructured childhood. Too much doing and not enough being. That's amazing and powerful to me. So Gordon Dahl said, most middle-class Americans tend to worship their work, to work at their play, and play at their worship. So it's hard to describe, I think, what being actually is. Because we're so enculturated, as I said, to be doing, to do. And our being becomes the doing. When I was a little girl, my grandma used to sit on the porch every evening after dinner and just sit, not doing anything. How many of you have noticed the last sunset, Friday night and Saturday night last night? They were gorgeous, weren't they? Gorgeous sunsets. And sitting and allowing a sunset to develop is the being. Watching the clouds drift is the being. Allowing yourself to be. Because when we allow our minds to be empty in such a way, we're inviting freshness and newness. New ideas have a hard time straining through the doingness. But allowing our minds to be still and quiet allows spirit to percolate up, to give us fresh ideas and fresh direction. It allows God to move into our lives in a deep, rich way that it cannot when we're so busy doing, when we're so busy impressing the Joneses with our accomplishments. You know, I noticed that I've done a lot of memorial services, and the eulogy is about the doing. Have you ever noticed that? What people did. Were their lives worthwhile by their doing? And then, the precious part, when neighbors and friends stand up and acknowledge the being. There's a whole difference, isn't there? And I have to say, or ask, do you want to be remembered for your doing? Or do you want to be remembered for your being? Do you want to allow spirit to inform your life? Or do you want people to stand up and make a list of stuff that you've done? For me, I prefer the being of it, the touching folks. So we can take a tip from nature, I think, about that. A field that has gone fallow has rich soil that allows new growth, rich crops. But there has to be the rest of the soil. There has to be the time to be at peace, even on the land. So I may have talked about this before, but I just love it. You can plant bamboo. You can plant a crop of bamboo, and for 5 years, nothing happens. And you think it's dead. But using the wisdom of bamboo, after the 5th year, it springs forth and it'll grow feet in days. Huge amounts of growth, but it needed that quiet time, that being time, the time of rest, the time of allowing before it comes to life. And so we all need that time of rest, the empty space, the time to be, that allows our sense of essence, of spirit, to move, to percolate, to give us fresh ideas, to anchor us in ways that we haven't had an opportunity The Tao says the way to action does not begin with action, but with mind. So until we're quiet, until we're still, until we get clear, we are unwise, according to the Tao, to take action. We need to allow Spirit to inform us. We need to allow our minds to be empty before we take action. And that's very difficult to do in our culture, isn't it? People expect there to be documentation of action. What have you done? What are you gonna do? And it's life-killing. It's soul-killing. To not allow time for Spirit. Not allow time to watch the clouds and watch the sunset. To wander aimlessly through the woods. To watch ants move across the ground. That's when Spirit has a chance to show up for us in the stillness, in the quiet, in the open space of mind, heart. There's a story that I found that I want to share with you. And it's about a grandfather who was up in the attic looking for a photo. And he ran across his son's journal. His son had written this little diary at 8 years old. And so the grandfather started thumbing through it and looking at it. And he was reminded of this little boy who is now a man. But Jimmy's diary had just brief little entrance. How would you say? Entries. So the grandfather took that little journal, the little diary of his son, and he found his appointment journal, and he started making comparisons. And this one entry that I want to share with you said, grandfather's journal said, wasted the whole day fishing with Jimmy. Didn't catch a thing. And Jimmy's journal said, went fishing with Dad. Best day of my life. How many of those entries do we have in our journal that we haven't accomplished anything, that we haven't done what we had planned to do? How many of you make to-do lists? And then you check them off and check them off and check them off, and at the end of the day you look and dadgummit, there's 6 that didn't get accomplished, right? Now let me ask you this. How many of you make a being journal? What do you want to be during the day? You smart kids. So perhaps you might entertain this example, this idea. When you awaken in the morning, ask yourself, how do I want to feel at the end of the day? How do I want to feel at the end of the day? And then ask, what is it that is required for me to feel that way? What what's required of me to feel satisfied, loved, at peace, in harmony, at the end of the day? What's required of me? And what is it that I need to do to accomplish that? What's the next thing I need to do so that at the end of the day, I am feeling peaceful, I'm feeling calm, I'm feeling loved and loving? What do I need to do? So it's not a matter of making a decision to either do or either be. It is a matter of finding a balance so that our being informs our doing, that we are able to live our lives in such a way that the end of the day and the end of our days, we have lived a life of being that is satisfying and that is whole and it is rich. And when we look back, we're able to feel as though we have created a life, not done a bunch of stuff, so that our doing is informed by our being, that we're living a life in balance. So that's what I suggest to you. As at the beginning of the day, ask yourself, how do I want to feel at the end of the day? And then allow your life to inform that list, the being list, so that there's a space, there's an opportunity for spirit to percolate up, guide you and direct you. In your doing, through your being. I love you all. Namaste. So I'd ask the practitioners to stand with me. Hold the consciousness. There's two today, but oh my gosh, they're so powerful. So allow yourself to move into that place and that space that is free to expand. That is free to be. In touch with, connected to the divine. At this moment, allow yourself to be. To love yourself just the way you are. Knowing that there is no action that you have to take, nothing you must do, only to be. And that huge space of God godness, that well and essence of the Spirit allows you freedom to sparkle and shine, to heal and to grow, to love yourself and others deeply and richly. Just allowing yourself to be the fullest and richest, most powerful, most genuine essence of your God self. And from that place, allow your doing to be informed, guided, and directed. So that at the end of this day, at the end of every day, you are feeling rich and fulfilled, balanced and in harmony, loved and loving, and peaceful as your truest divine self. And from that place, I speak into the law, knowing that it must return to me fulfilled, that it must be done. And I invite you to join with me as we declare it so by saying, and so it is.